Hello, beautiful homemakers. Yesterday we discussed the second requirement, which tells us why financially successful women often fail at marriage. I wanted to go more in depth into the subject. It's from the original 1922 Fascinating Womanhood pamphlets, pamphlet number 4, chapter 7, The Quality That Inspires Love. And yesterday we discussed the essentials of personal magnetism, which are what we've covered in the previous 3 pamphlets: healthy physical condition, healthy and wholesome thinking, proper pride, and respect. But in addition, we learned yesterday that for a woman to be completely and absorbingly fascinating to a man, she must emphasize the differences between herself and him and not the similarities. And many women try to attract men with their competence in the man's field, which is their field if they're working, not understanding that actually repels most men because they hate competing with women. They're also turned off by how women dress, their dowdy business attire. But then if they try to jazz it up like they do in the magazines, which is always a little on the sexy side, then they'll always be perceived as incompetent and getting ahead by their looks. We also discussed yesterday that there have been several famous women who possess great personal magnetism and are admired by men and women, but who can never change men's admiration into love. And I'm quoting from the pamphlets, "The average man would never think of indulging in an intimate tete-a-tete with her. Such able women, healthy physically and mentally, proud and self-respecting, whom the men admire greatly, but by whom they do not seem to be fascinated." Now, the reason for that will be evident if you have been listening to the videos up to this point. These women do not have the first and second requirements of fascination. The first requirement has to do with the angelic side of a woman who is noble and adorable. She's morally better than him in his eyes. She has a higher idealization of what is good and right when compared to his "that's life" philosophy. And the second requirement is the human side of a woman that compels a man to want to gather her up in his arms, to cherish and protect her forever. It is that quality that makes a man want to marry her. And this second requirement has to do with helplessness. Now, I know women everywhere are shrieking, thinking back to times where women lounged on couches and can't lift a finger. But thankfully, that is not what we're talking about. Instead, it's the women who display the need for a man to help her through life, who invokes the feelings of chivalry in men. She is looked upon as much too precious to live life without his guidance and protection from the big bad world. But if she can do it all competently herself, and we will be discussing this in the videos coming up with pamphlet 4 in detail, then why does she need a man? And yet this is the feminist's ultimate goal. Men are completely unnecessary except to breed. And if you watch a Barbie movie compilation, you'll get the picture. Many women can successfully pass that first requirement of health and respect, proper pride. But they fail dismally with the second, helplessness, because they perceive any type of help from a man as failure. Now, do you see a toddler as a failure when she cannot button her shirt or eat without making a mess? Is she a failure when she strives to do something new but just topples over and fails? Don't you dare make that analogy with me, Janine. I am not a toddler, you may be shouting. I am a competent woman. Of course you are. The analogy isn't that you need to act like a toddler. It's that men don't see women as failures when women ask for a man's help in anything, unless they feel that they are being played. To attract a worthy man in a worthy manner, you must fulfill both the angelic and human requirements. The majority of financially successful women today simply cannot invoke the feeling of satisfaction that a man gets when he cherishes and shelters a woman who needs his manly care, or who at least appears to need it, because her self-reliance proves that she can obviously do very well without him. She has no real need for him. The way she then chooses to talk with him further proves this point. A man gets no joy or satisfaction from providing for a woman who does not need it. Thus, instead of showing his love by working to provide for her, he lets her earn the income while he spends more time playing. Masculine men want feminine women. When women take on masculine characteristics, they become less attractive to men. The culture, therefore, with a plethora of masculine women, is producing feminized men. The Barbie movie, again, from the clips I've seen, seems to epitomize this feminist dream. Masculine men need a woman to have that second requirement: dependence, helplessness. When women begin married life needing their husband, but then do really well in business and become a success, marriages often break down because she has unintentionally lost much of her femininity that gave him the drive to provide for her. She doesn't need him to provide, so his eye begins roving for a woman who will appreciate him for providing. This, of course, does not make cheating right, and if he is married, then he is forsaking his vows. But I have witnessed this time and time again, as have you. And I have also experienced it myself in my first marriage. If you can truly grasp what I am saying, and it will probably take repeating many times from people other than myself and these pamphlets before you do grasp it, if you're a financially successful woman who is poo-pooing this, then you will begin to see in the people that surround you, and the people in your church, the people on TV, the people on YouTube, everyone, that this is true. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Successful career women rob men of their sense of manliness. When women begin out-earning men in a marriage, many men simply give up. Their intimate life will decrease and be unfulfilling for them both. She'll begin talking to him differently, with superiority. She gets bossy and controlling. She wants things done her way. Then, because her job is so demanding, she gets stressed. She's anxious. Then she's depressed. She's always torn between family and making money. She neglects the home and her spouse because the children, she feels, need her more than her spouse. And why won't he just grow up? Why is he always around bothering her while she's trying to work? Doesn't he see how stressed she is? Why can't he just do it for himself? Because that isn't how men are wired. He wants to be front and center in her life. He wants her help at home, and he also wants to be the provider. That is how many men think. And when his wife isn't available for him, he says life is too short to be ignored by his wife. He's sick of the constant bickering, and he'll find a woman who wants to be at home and live on what he can provide. So he goes looking. Then his wife will divorce him. If he won't be faithful, then she doesn't have to stay married to him. All spouses deserve monogamy through thick and thin, for richer and for poorer. But I want you ladies to understand that it is the wife who sets the tone of the home, and the world teaches her to tear down her own home by her actions and her words and her work. Men react to the home life women create. Men are seeking women who possess that second requirement. Women with a meek, a gentle, and quiet spirit, who delight in living off of what he can provide, who delight in the home, and most importantly, who delight in him. The flip side for him, though, is that in many cases, he can no longer find a woman like that in America. So he goes off the continent to find a woman who will be content at home. It reminds me of an old I Dream of Jeannie episode where Jeannie learns from a women's magazine how an American woman is supposed to behave. And instead of being her own adorable self, she becomes intolerable. Unlike the romantic movies of today that are written by women for women and feature strong, successful, independent career women, the TV shows and movies of yesterday were written by men and reveal how men think. Years ago, every single Christmas movie featured a worn-out working mom who gets to see how much better life would be if she only stayed home with her children. Or, like in The Christmas Claus with Leah Thompson, she's a harried stay-at-home mom who wishes she was a successful lawyer, and she gets her wish, only to regret her choice. Or how the main character in The Family Man regrets his choice of not having a wife and children and desperately wants what could have been. If you really want to be a nurse or a teacher or whatever, wait until after your children are grown. I've known several women who have done this. You'll be a lot more competent with real-world experience. To do the career first means that you may never have children. But what if I don't find a man right away in my 20s? Or what if my spouse dies and then I can't support myself? These are the two questions I get asked the most. To the first one, if you live Fascinating Womanhood, you will have no problem finding Mr. Right. You will be snatched up. To the second one, chances are high that he won't die. But if he does, and you have children under 18, then you will receive his Social Security survivor's benefits if you live in America and if he had a job. So don't be afraid of that what if. Remember, when you are in step with the world, you are out of step with God. So rely on God. He is your true provider. I want to be a role model for my children. I want to show them what is possible, what a woman can do. I read this all the time in magazines when I'm with my mother-in-law waiting. Actresses, especially after their divorces, love to say that line as they abandon their children to nannies or daycares. It's pure selfishness, though. Your children do not want you to work. They don't want you to be a working mom role model. I will never forget a TV special, I think it was in the 1980s, maybe it was the 90s, where women went into the classrooms to tell the children that now their moms would be carrying briefcases and working like their daddies. They would not be home after school anymore. And a few sobs were heard, but the children were told that this was to be celebrated and that they could help their moms by cleaning the house, cooking dinner for their poor tired mom, doing their homework at the kitchen table while their mom did the paperwork she brought home from her office, and never complaining. They were reminded that there would only be playtime and parks and board games on the weekends from now on. And I can remember thinking that I was so glad my mom didn't treat us that way. And she did work for a while, but she was always home before we got home from school. And she was always home during our summer vacations because she loved being home with us. She enjoyed our summer vacations. She made the summers fun at home. We weren't constantly rushed here and there. One year, they made a beach for us in the backyard. My mom was very good at what she did, so she called the shots on her work schedule. And if they didn't want her on limited hours, well, fine. But those were her parameters, and she stuck to them. The culture tells you to be a confident, capable career woman. But men really prefer a confident, capable homemaker who is a smiling, joyful, fun-loving, radiant doll of a girl on whom they can lavish their affections. She is happy with herself and happy with him. She chooses to be happy. She learns how to be happy. And if you are at home and not happy, that's your fault. You need to find what makes you happy at home. The world is at your fingertips. I don't see how any woman can say she is bored at home. Being home is not about constantly cleaning, not at all. A full life is lived at home, and you are the creator of that home. Now, if you are married and feel that you must work, try reducing your hours. Try going to a 4-day work week. You cannot do it all. And women, you set the tone for your home. If your home is not your focus, then chances are higher that your home life will fail, and no career will ever make up for that failure. And if you are considering divorce, I beg you, listen to lauradoyle.org. Listen to her podcasts, read her books, sign up for her life coaching service, if only for 1 month. Marriage counseling never works, but Laura's methods do. Also, ladies, get off the pill. Sydney Watson just came out with a very balanced video on the subject that I'll link below. And I know that what she talks about is true because I've experienced it too. The pill messes with your body and mind. If you are not married and you are on the pill, you will be attracted to more boyish men because the pill decreases your estrogen. But if you aren't on the pill, you will seek out and admire more masculine men with higher testosterone because your estrogen levels will be higher. And this means that once you are married, your intimate life, as long as you stay off the pill, will be in balance with each other. But if you are married and on the pill, he'll want you, but you won't want him, and the next thing you know, you'll be roommates, and then he'll go looking for someone else. And when you get off the pill, you'll notice that your body had been numbed. I remember this feeling so well. I was astonished. I thought I was the only one, but now women talk about this openly. I could feel cramps again, which was terrible, But I was also sharper in my mind, and I was able to better sense what was going on around me. I was more sensitive. I also became more interested in feminine ways, and I began to prefer the color pink, which I had previously avoided. I wanted to stay home and not work, and I went from admiring men with boyish features to bigger, more masculine Marlboro men. I remember being surprised with myself and wondering if it was because I was off the pill. And yes, indeed, it was. I'm thankful that I got off the pill before I met my second husband. My feelings were also more sensitive, and I cried more in the early days of my second marriage. But this is okay. It's good for men to see real tears when they're being big brutes with their barbs. When your boyfriend or husband gives you constructive criticism, you won't cry. But then when he ends his talk with an insult, you simply tell him, "I appreciate what you are telling me, but now that you have insulted me, I am going to go cry." You don't do any name calling. You don't do any, "but you." You just call him a big meanie and go have your cry. And he will apologize, and he will learn to treat you better. But he will never be perfect, and neither will you. Let go of your illusions and accept him as he is. If you are not married and you can't accept your boyfriend as he is, then let him go. How's life with you? Crazy, chaotic. I can't relax. This is what I hear from working women today. Step off the treadmill with the scurrying women who want more, faster, better. Step into slow living, which will entail incorporating this second requirement. Focus on your home life. Get more sleep. Raise your kids like it was 1976. That reminds me that recently my son took an online quiz to guess his age, and it asked him questions like what TV shows he watched as a child, what his first video game was, what toys he played with, and then the game guessed that he was 45 years old. He's 17. And that's because I raised him the old-fashioned way, slowly, with plenty of time to play, read, go on field trips, have park days, and he only watched wholesome entertainment. I raised him how I was raised in the 1970s and 80s, and he was not overscheduled. And one little girl would always thank me every time she came over because she was absolutely delighted with our old-fashioned toys. And one time she said, "Oh, thank you for inviting me. I've always wanted to attend an old-fashioned birthday party. It's right out of a storybook." We had played pin the tail, beanbag toss, hot potato, and other outdoor games. And there was no bounce house, and the cake was homemade. And that's how I began talking about storybook mothering on my blog. Remember, ladies, that research done in nursing homes says that women's biggest regrets at the end of their life are not staying home with their children, not having more children, and not being content with what they had. They traded in being at home for working for a house payment. So can you answer this question? What is your purpose in life? May God bless you as you learn the balancing act of that second requirement and step into slow living. Bye.